to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kylor Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. An old English bulldog, a bison, a bobcat, and a jackrabbit walk into a bar, and they ask the bartender, "I'd like a Texas prairie fire, please." And the bartender leans in and says, "I've only got enough for two." Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. We are down to 4 teams, the semifinals Friday and Saturday. To see who's going to tiptoe down to Frisco with us admin team. We are all back. We apologize for being 1 day late, a few scheduling conflicts, but we're back behind the microphone. Jamie Williams, Kylor Neal, Matt Frazee, here for your FCS Fans Nation podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time, and we have so many amazing questions from our fans, guiding us through some semifinal talk in preparation to see who joins us in Frisco. Before we get to that, we won't recap this weekend's games much in this podcast, but we will recap all 3 of our weekends real quick, as we actually all attended an FCS game. Myself up in the Fargo Dome, super early, just because of my crew being spread with so many little kids. We actually were so small, we went to the B-dubs across the street for tailgating. We did not pull in the traditional horse trailer, so that was kind of cool. We were like those old retired folks this time, so... but the game was fun. Only 11,000 fans, but we were still loud. So, Jamie, my man, how was your experience at Bridgeforth?
It was awesome. I was kind of gonna fly solo, but threw it out on our JV Nation board the day before, asking if anybody was heading that way from the Richmond area. Shout out to Chris and Anna Edmonds for reaching out and offering a ride, podcast listeners. So had a great time with them, tailgating out with a bunch of folks on Godwin Field. Talked to a lot of the good fans there. Ran into Brandon Ravenel, who was on the 2016 team. Cool. You recognize the name Ravenel, Montana fans do, because broke me before the game. He felt like tonight was going to be his brother's shot, where he's going to finally get his opportunity. Second drive in, 82 yards later, Devin Ravenel was in the end zone. So just a cool little anecdote there. Great ride up and back with, like I said, with Chris and Anna, huge JMU fans. So pretty awesome experience out there to witness a big quarterfinal win.
Yeah, for sure. That seems like a lot of fun. And Kylor, it was expected for me and Jamie probably to head to our teams, but my man, with Eastern out of the playoffs, you still attended an FCS football game. I saw some photos, man. That looked like a good time. Which one were you at?
Yes, sir. I went to the Sam Houston State game, since I'm down in Sam Houston area, the actual Houston metro. So I decided, hey, the Reddit guy, the FCS Reddit guy, he sent me a message and said, "Kylor, I know you're in the area. I'm going up to the game and have an extra ticket. You want to go?" Said, "Absolutely, let's go." So met up him at the bar. We sat down, actually pretty much on the Montana State side, which was kind of fun because he's a Sam Houston alumni. Cool. But the Montana State crowd was pretty gnarly. For an actual traveling, I was surprised that they brought that many fans. One of the bars we were at, all Montana State fans. We sat next to like Tucker Rovig's parents. And then, I drove up Montana Parlay. If you guys are familiar with him on Twitter, he's got a big Twitter following from the Big Sky Podcast Network. He flew down to watch his Bobcats. Yeah, man, it was overall a super fun game under the lights. I got the Montana State cheerleaders to do a F the Grizz chant. They didn't say the naughty word, but they cheered on for anything against the Grizz. So no, it was such a fun game. Really, really good time.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, good experiences for everybody. Obviously, myself, I'll be experiencing another good semifinal this week. You guys will be watching on the TV, but we'll all be down in Frisco to see who's down in that finale. And it's time tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to figure out who is going to be down there. And our fans' questions are going to guide us through that conversation. And of course, as always, we're going to start with the big 7 questions of the week.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big 7.
All right, guys. No, my math is not off. here we go. We're going to start with a quick hit question in the beginning. This one right here from Richard Dean. You guys are going to really like this. This is from Richard Dean. He asked in our questions this week, how much will it cost me to get Matt in a purple JMU jersey during the game? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're listening. I would like to announce that this is actually a possibility. And here's how it's going to work. I read this question. I reached out to Jamie, Kylor, the admins, and I said, what if I put a number on a GoFundMe for a charity? And if JMU fans and FCS fans hit that number, I will wear a James Madison jersey to the game in the Fargo Dome during the tailgate the entire time, win or lose for the Bison. So what I've decided to do is support a local community effort of ours. I'm in a town in Castleton in North Dakota. Our school, Central Cast, has the Central Cast Treehouse. It is a nonprofit for teachers to be able to give underprivileged youth and kids in the winter who may not have a proper winter coat, they may not have proper gloves, they may not have meals over the weekends. And with COVID-19, guys, and other factors, the homelessness in children actually in the Fargo-Moorhead area has doubled. So like there's efforts like this and nonprofits like this that can really help people, especially during the holiday season. So my pride be damned, let's help some folks out. If I can get $500 to the GoFundMe, which I'm going to be blasting all over social media, you'll see it on our Facebook page, our Twitter, you'll see it everywhere. If we get donations from, that's just 50 people donating $10. If you donate $500 and we hit that goal, I'm going to give that to the Central Cast Treehouse to help kids who need everything. You know, they need things that some of us don't even think about on a daily basis. And I'll rock that Dukes jersey. I'll take all the crap from NDSU fans, just knowing we support a good cause. So Richard Dean and everybody, take a look and make me wear that Dukes gear, okay?
So does that mean you already have a Dukes jersey somewhere hidden in the closet? Because you didn't account for logistics and...
So I've reached out to a few JMU fans who are planning to, I'm actually picking a few of them up from the airport, if you can believe it, because my work is very close, but they're coming to tailgate with my crew. And I'm reaching out to them right now saying, hey, you got to bring an extra jersey or a t-shirt or something, because I think FCS Fans Nation is going to pull this off. So if you guys do anything else with this podcast, find this GoFundMe link on our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. I'm going to post it every day. My @Matthew Frazee, it's going to be on my Twitter. And donate. Please donate anything. Even if we don't hit 500, I'll wear a Dukes hat if it's below 500 to the game. Help these kids out, okay? So, cool. All right, that should be fun. There you go, Richard. $500 to a good cause, and I'll be rocking the Dukes gear.
And if you guys donate $500,000 to just Matthew Frazee's Venmo account, he'll move to Harrisonburg.
Yes. I said if someone donates $50,000 to a charity, I'll wear UND gear. There you go. So 50K, that's the number. All right, guys, let's roll into some things that people are very interested in. Obviously, we've got some huge matchups here. Our first 3 questions are going to be about NDSU James Madison because they're the Friday night game. The next 3 of the Big 7 will be about the Bobcats and South Dakota State and a fun one at the end. So let's kick it right off here, starting with Mr. Christopher M.L. Johnson for the NDSU James Madison game. How do the offensive and defensive matchups look on each side? He says, also, I'd like to give props to all the student athletes. We, the fans, are always chanting. We're always chirping. It's not entirely fair that we're so hard on them. They give a lot of effort. So shout out to the student athletes. Great stuff, Christopher. We love it. So on to the actual question, though. Offensive, defensive matchups. How do they look on each side? Kylor, you are the most unbiased party here between Jamie and I, obviously, as we have our teams matching up. How do you see
sure
things...
about that? Go Dukes.
Yeah, I know. You don't want the Bison to win. You'd rather have the Sun Belt team take it.
Go Sun Belt.
What do you see right off the bat between these two squads?
I mean, the interesting thing is, Matt, you actually posted this on Twitter, like right after the game this weekend. But JMU and NDSU are the complete same and opposite offenses, if that makes sense, right? They are the same in terms of efficiency, but just how they're getting it done is a complete difference. Every now and then they'll show some glimpses of hope from the portion of the offense that they're struggling, but for the main part, there's been one dominant force that's been able to chug through every single game. For North Dakota State, they're running the ball like no one else. That front 7 is doing a tremendous job. James Madison, tremendous passing offense. And then the only difference is James Madison for most of the year struggle a little bit running the ball. NDSU for most of the year struggling throwing the ball. But overall, they're still two of the, what are they, top 5 or something like that offenses overall. So it's not like when they're struggling, are they really struggling? No, they're just getting it done in one aspect of their offense. And then defensively, I don't know what to say about both these defenses besides these are two of the most elite defenses in the FCS this year. You know, you can probably go to a different stats boards and say someone else is more elite or something like this, but no, these are the two most elite defenses I've seen play all year. So it will be really fun to see. So I think defensives, they match up extremely well with each other. Offenses, they're the exact same, but exact opposite team on offense, which is kind of crazy to see. So it's going to be super fun game. But yeah, that's about all. I mean, they're dominant on both sides of the ball everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. To the tweet I did send out, this does not include last week. So honestly, based off last week, how JMU passed the ball, they had a lot of rushing yards, but NDSU's rushing yards. Don't worry about last week. So discount the quarterfinals. This will still trip you out. North Dakota State's rushing yards, 3,300. I'm going to round up on all these. JMU's passing yards, 3,300. JMU's rushing yards, 1,900. NDSU's passing yards, just under 1,900. For rushing touchdowns, NDSU is 37. James Madison passing touchdowns, 39. JMU rushing touchdowns, 14. NDSU's passing touchdowns, 17. And the defensive categories get even more trippy. NDSU, JMU giving up 4.45 yards per play to 4.32. Yards per game, NDSU 263.8. James Madison 267.7. I mean, down the line on that tweet thread, it's right back and forth. And that does not include the quarterfinals, guys. So if you're stat checking this now on the NCAA page, you're going, what? Matt's crazy. Don't include the quarterfinals. So it is very close. Offense and defense side of the ball. Can't say much more about what you said there, Kylor. The things I'm really intrigued about, obviously, are going to be where do the struggles come in for NDSU's passing offense? Can Cole Johnson get enough help from his offensive line and running game to efficiently move the ball? Can those NDSU corners stop what seems to be receivers who are running amazing routes and good coaching concepts? Can those things, I mean, how does that look? So, Jamie, you and me back and forth, man, here a little bit. What about you with NDSU scares you, and what are you confident in as a Dukes fan?
I'm definitely confident in our pass game. That's not to say that North Dakota State doesn't have an excellent pass defense, but really nobody's completely shut it down. Weber did a good job. Obviously, Villanova did a good job, but they still kind of did what they needed to do. A little bit of in-depth. I think third down's huge. Both teams excel on offense on third down and really excel defensively on third down. So there's going to be that back and forth, that little field possession game where it's going to be a punt here, punt there. Does somebody go for it at a tight spot? Red zone is also big. Who's going to get a red zone touchdown? They've both been in the red zone nearly 60 times, but JMU's kicked 22 red zone field goals. Now, JMU has more red zone scores total than NDSU. They've gotten 6 empty possessions in the red zone. NDSU has 10 offensively. So who can bend but not break in the red zone when the offense does get there? Can they get off the field without points or force a field goal? Who scores the touchdown? And, of course, the all-elusive trick play. We don't run a bunch. Matt Entz tends to throw some wrinkles in there. And with Quincy and Cam on the field at the same time, that concerns me because both have the ability to run, both have the ability to pass. Christian Watson being a game-time decision, my guess is it's gamesmanship if he doesn't play, but if he does, he's a huge weapon. And then, obviously, protecting the ball. JMU's number 1 in the country in turnover margin. NDSU's 28. So can somebody flip the field, short field? So it's just that small stuff, nitpicking back and forth. If anybody says, oh, this is going to be a blowout either way, they're honestly just homers.
Yeah, no way is it going to be a blowout. I've been saying for weeks, maybe even over a month, I said before the seeding came out, I was like, if this game's in James Madison, I'm probably going to pick the Dukes, and I would have picked James Madison to win if NDSU had to travel on the road. I'm going to pick NDSU if it's in the Fargo Dome. That's probably where a lot of the line comes from. Some of the things for me I'm thinking about in terms of advantages and disadvantages, and the Duke fans obviously have all confidence in it, but I really want to see this front seven of North Dakota State, defensive line particularly, which is all seniors, defensive end and defensive tackles for the starters and the rotators that come in, versus a very young James Madison offensive line. The thing that NDSU fans are licking their lips at is Cole Johnson is a little shifty, but he's not a dual threat. And that's where NDSU fans go, okay, have we ever been beaten by that? Have we ever, it's Brian Shore moving up, shifting around, his play action ability, his step up in the pocket to the tight end. Even DiNucci had that little bit of shiftiness more than I would say Cole Johnson, but Cole Johnson is like a Tom Brady. Okay, I know what you're all saying, but stick with me here. The dude is like studying like nuclear chemistry or something, I heard, and he's got his master's and he does like financial management on the side. He wins with his brain and his head movement. Like he moves defenses with how he moves. So that to me is going to be interesting. I think that's the biggest outlier, or not outlier, it's the biggest question will be if Cole Johnson has time and he's able to make his throws that he's been efficient with, and James Madison's able to move the ball on, the Dukes probably are going to win the game. If NDSU can rattle him, then I don't know how that Duke offense is going to be able to move on NDSU. I'm also extremely curious on the coaching strategy and lineup, because I'm going to sound biased here, but boy, in between those weeks of 2019, it felt like Entz and his crew were playing chess and Signetti and them were sticking to the same Duke game plan, playing checkers. And will they bring in a game plan that's going to efficiently totally take NDSU out of their ball game? Because South Dakota State does that beautifully. I mean, they are so scripted for North Dakota State. Stiegemeyer and them, they have them figured out. Now, will the Dukes come in there and try to play their game, or will they play the game that will defeat North Dakota State the way they did in 2016 with Mike Houston and the crew? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Those are kind of my factors. Jamie got pushback on Lee. Kylor, what do you think about that?
No, I think that's definitely fair. I've grown a little bit more confident in the offensive line. I know Cole looked like he was running around a little bit in the first half this past week against Montana. But if you really look at it, 4 tackles for loss the entire game.
Right. Yeah, against the Montana defense, that we couldn't have promoted more, right? So it's not fair for now me to go back and be like, well, now it's NDSU. Now Montana's defense sucks. Well, James Madison did a dang good job. So if they can hold up that way, we'll just see with that. I mean, 11,000 is loud, and it's going to be at least 17 in there. And that definitely could play a factor in terms of how they play. So we're obviously still into this game, but I want to keep on the dialogue of some of the questions, gentlemen. That includes here from John Arid, who says, can North Dakota State overcome their injuries and find a little bit of a passing game to take down JMU? Just a little bit of context. Last week was one of the worst weeks North Dakota State's probably had on the injury front. That is going to include their starting center possibly being out. It's going to include they may have lost Kobe Johnson, one of their very fast and efficient, quick running backs. It was Kobe or Jalen Bussey. It's one of the two who are just kind of the lightning, to the thunder. On top of that, I really think Christian Watson is massive. If you guys don't know, they lost Noah Gindorf, their tight end, in the round 2 game. So he's out for the season. And that really was Cam Miller's kind of middle of the field go-to guy. And Christian Watson being out, we'll see if he plays. My sources are saying he's on the trajectory to do it. How efficient he'll be, we'll see. But if that deep threat is gone from a James Madison defense that sometimes has given up the big play, and Christian is just so fast and so athletic, that's going to give James Madison such an edge. So to answer John's question to me personally, if you wanted to ask the bias Bison admin, this feels a little 2016-ish. Nick DeLuca out at linebacker, Nate Tangway gone at defensive tackle. Suddenly you're getting gutted up the middle by JMU's offense. Well, maybe you have lost too much in the passing game to be efficient because of injuries. So, Jamie, do you start licking your lips there a little bit when you see NDSU, some of the injuries they've had? Because I know you guys have had injuries as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I kind of do. Just because if you're not going to stretch the field, our safeties are going to be down in the box.
Right.
And NDSU is going to be NDSU. They're going to want to run the ball, but they're going to have to pass enough to keep James Madison's safeties a little honest and not just play one-on-one on the outside. I know Grindorf's out. That's a huge, huge loss. If Watson can't play, that's a problem. Phoenix Sproles, what's his status?
Phoenix Sproles will play, but would I put Phoenix Sproles as like the receiving overall threat that like opens up and changes concepts for other players? No, it was Gindorf in the middle with that tight end, and they've got quality good backup tight ends, but Watson is a big loss.
And if you don't have, like you said, I don't remember if it's Bussey or Johnson, just all that change of pace. If you're down to a couple backs and it's the fullback looking guy, Lutke, I can't say those.
Yep.
I'm like you with pronouncing some of these names. That A gap. I mean, they can block it, but I like our line. I mean, if your center's out, I mean, I lick my lips a little bit more. It makes me a little bit more confident. But
yeah, for sure.
Do I can sit here and say, yep, that because of that, JMU's definitely going to win? Absolutely not. They got to execute and they got to have the right game plan.
Yeah, I keep hearing the one-dimensional argument, and Kylor, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Did NDSU beat JMU playing basically forced into one-dimensional ball the last 2 times they played? Like, where was the passing game efficiency for NDSU? Everyone keeps saying, well, without that passing game, good luck. And it's like, well, defense and doing enough out coaching just kind of worked the last 2 times. Could it work at home again, or are we going back to 2016?
I don't even think I'm just going to say it's defense or coaching that was the difference maker in that game. Trey Lance. I mean, if we're going to be honest,
a coach would put a spy on Trey Lance.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying NDSU's coaching ability. Yeah, Signetti's coaching ability in that game maybe a little faulty. But I mean, I do think it was that elite quarterback play, which it looks like North Dakota State just doesn't have it right now. They have an efficient quarterback, good enough quarterback, but it's a big step down from Easton Stick, Carson Wentz, Trey Lance right now. It's not going to say in 2 years, but as of this year, there still looks to be a big difference. I think the biggest difference that can make a difference for you guys offensively, Matt, and you alluded to this, but Watson. I mean, I was reading on the Twitter sphere. It seems like most people are pretty confident he is going to play. But if you don't have him, now, yes, his stats aren't the top of the leaderboard for wide receivers, for yards, for touchdowns. But when you watch him play, he's by far one of the best difference makers on NDSU's roster right now. And it keeps, like what Jamie just said, it's going to have to keep your safeties honest. It's going to have to keep your DBs honest. If he's on the field, you don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to do a jet sweep? Is he going to bust out on a streak? Can he do a slant and still run 65 yards to the end zone? He is one of those players that makes NDSU's passing offense special enough to get the job done, right? If he's not there, I don't see NDSU's passing offense really being able to move the ball that much. They're going to really have to rely kind of like what they did in 2020, the spring season, or whatever you want to say. The passing offense wasn't even there against Eastern Washington's passing defense. I think James Madison is a little bit better. The nice thing what NDSU had, though, was one hell of a line, a lot of running back power, and they were able to kind of assert their dominance on the power side. James Madison probably not going to be able to do that like you did against Eastern Washington's front seven. So that's, I think, that Watson injury, to me, that's the most questionable thing. But on the Twitter sphere, it seems like most people are saying he's going to play. So sorry, JMU fans, that does make the game a little bit tougher.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say about a spy is, honestly, I don't really believe in it, because whoever you have as a spy is not going to be as good an athlete as that running quarterback. There's nobody that we had on our defense that is good an athlete as Trey Lance is going to be able to track him sideline to sideline. You've got to treat it like when you see teams defeat Lamar Jackson. It's gap integrity, almost like playing the triple option. And what they did is take advantage of our aggressive defense. And we continued to be aggressive for 2.5 quarters and finally adjusted, and everybody stayed in their lane. And all of a sudden, Trey wasn't getting those yards. It took too long to adjust. So I don't believe in the spy, but hopefully they can take some of those lessons learned when Quincy Patterson runs out on the field, and especially if they're both on the field at the same time.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to see. There's so many things. This game really is like, we got to get at least a quarter in to be like, where are these storylines going to go? Because it's just, there's so many onesie twosies, which is cool. Speaking of storylines, Jamie, our third question here of the Big Seven is from Mr. Eric Barden. This is a really great one. And then, guys, we promise we're going to talk about the Jackrabbits and the Bobcats just as much in depth as we did NDSU JMU. We're not just the Jamie Matt hour here. Will Radke have a bigger role playing in a dome, as in does Signetti roll the dice on 50-plus yarders? I love this question because you guys have the greatest FCS kicker of all time. Well, I'll just say that, based off statistics, obviously. So you're going to be in a dome. It's going to be rocking, but kicking in a dome, you're not going to have any weather factors. The guy's capable of hitting 50-yarders, but are you going to risk giving the Bison a short field with that vicious defense? I want to hear your take on this, man, because we know how much special teams played in 2019 when these teams met. What do you think?
I think it would be very, very situational that he would run him out there at 50 yards. And I'm talking like maybe just game-winning field goal at the end, or maybe to extend a lead to 10, or a two-score kind of game. We've kind of shown that when you get around that 35 to 40-yard mark, we're more likely, as long as it's 4th and 8 or less, more likely to try to go for it and see if we can move the ball that way rather than maybe kick a field goal, depending on the situation. Again, depending on the situation, they might run the punt out there and have Harry O'Kelly try to drop one inside the 10, which he's done a great job of. But I think Radke can have a little bit more than the 46, 47-yard range that he would have outside. So that's where I like this question is if you need that kick, you've got that extra buffer from rather than saying, okay, 46, 47 is about it, because you saw him hit the one against Weber. That was 47 yards and that's plenty of leg. He's 4 years older now. He's honed his craft. He's almost right down the middle on almost every kick except for 2 in one game. But, that's okay. Not going to blame the kid for the loss. He's done a great job. He's won us more than he's lost. So if Kurt runs him out there, I trust him to knock it through.
Yeah, that will be very interesting. Of course, we see the Titanic videos as those field goals in 2016 were so important for JMU to come in there and win that game. So, Kylor, do you see any differentials here for special teams as we finish up our quick recap of the Dukes and the Bison?
Yeah, I actually think JMU is going to kick more often, even on those 50-plus yarders. A couple reasons. For one, JMU's rushing defense is elite. They're probably pretty confident that they're at least going to be able to match up well with NDSU's rushing game, and I don't think they fear the passing game. So I don't think field position is maybe as important as just trying to get points on the board, because I think the bigger battle is these two offenses going against these two defenses instead of vice versa. So if they are in any type of range to try their best to get 3 points, I think they're going to trust that more often and then trust the defensive side in case they miss to get a stop. I think we're going to see him make some big kicks and Signetti making some good decisions on, we're 53 yards out. Let's bring in the kicker. Let's do it. I think 3 points on the board in this type of a game is a massive advantage.
But can he make a field goal that long for the win at 12:02 a.m. Central, 1:02 a.m. Eastern time, because this is the latest start to an FCS game.
That guy parties. He is up till 4 a.m. every single day. The time zone's not going to bother him.
Yep. As I was playing some fun at the fact that there's a bowl game between Northern Illinois and Coastal Carolina before this matchup, which will force this game to not kick off till 8:15. That's okay. Got some Duke fans coming into town. I'm looking forward to hosting them at our tailgate, drinking many beers, and getting ready for a rowdy night. And hopefully myself in a Duke's jersey, because we raised money for a good reason. Find that GoFundMe. Okay, guys, so let's move on to the next matchup, which I think, first we have to say, I think basically everyone here was kind of wrong on Sam Houston, at least up till we didn't expect them to lose in the quarters, right? We expected Montana State to play a competitive game, but Sam Houston to win. I need to eat a ton of crow. I'm going to put season on it. I'm going to throw it on the grill because I said, I admitted on Twitter, I said Sam Houston was going to pound Montana State because of style matchup. Well, good job, Brett Vegan, former Bison coach under Craig Bull. You made me eat a ton of crow. So Bobcat fans, I bow down to you. Great game. And let's kind of break that down a little bit as we look forward to Montana State hosting South Dakota State on the Saturday matchup. And we start with Brandon Owens' question. Has an 8 seed ever hosted a semifinal? And does it favor Montana State to host and get to Frisco? From my understanding, from my research, I did not find a single 8 seed since they went to that format. Prior to that, it was 5 seeds. But when they popped up to 8, no, we have not seen this. So very historic. Good for Bozeman. And let's start with that. Is this for South Dakota State going to Montana? I know the question's about Montana State, but of course it depends on who they play. Kylor, let me ask you, because you're the Big Sky man. Is this more of a negative for South Dakota State to have to go to Bozeman now instead of Sam Houston, or is there no real difference here?
I think there's definitely a difference in just terms of atmosphere, in terms of weather possibilities, in terms of elevation. The travel, there's not much of a difference. Maybe teams, South Dakota State's probably even a little bit more familiar with Sam Houston State. They probably would have a little bit of revenge on their mind. I think still South Dakota State probably matches up better against Montana State than they do Sam Houston, but I think it's pretty minuscule. They are all three pretty evenly based teams in a sense, but I think in the actual traveling to a game, it's definitely tougher to win in Bozeman than it is in Sam Houston. I know they have that record in Bowers Stadium, and that's just because they've had extremely good teams that have actually let that record stand. The difference, I've been to a lot of Sam Houston games. There's nothing about the stadium that screams this is hard to actually play at unless you're going to play in August or something like that. Where Bozeman, that is a tough environment. They're ruckus. They got cowbells for days. So you'll hear it on TV. They're going to be ringing their cowbells. It's probably going to snow. It's just going to be a tougher game in terms of atmosphere and everything else. But I don't know. I thought South Dakota State probably had their hands full with either one of the matchups.
Yeah, so we're going to do a little bit of analytical and stats breakdown because we're not just Bison and Duke fans, but this one's also really interesting too. When you look at the NCAA, looks like it was last updated on December 12th, so looks like we should be good here. But when you look at total defense, Montana State and South Dakota State, Montana State is right up there with the rest of them. So it's not like you're going to see a lot of differential in between these schools. They are actually number 12th overall for Montana State. And this is the real question. Is we've said this about Villanova, like they had a top 10 rush or top 10 total defense. They had a top 5 rush defense. They were number 3 in the country, but everybody kept thinking the same thing. Will South Dakota State's lines eventually take over? And every time they do, the 605 Hogs, as they're called, they just overpower defensive and offensive lines by the third or fourth quarter, and then things go off the rails. When you look at these teams in terms of their rushing defense, once again, Villanova was really high up there until they played South Dakota State. They dropped quite a bit, but Montana sits at 13th, and South Dakota State's rushing defense sits at 11th. So we know how good they can be. So against a Walter Payton style of running back, right? How efficient will South Dakota State be? It's that's my question is like, I can look at a million statistics with Montana State and I can look at a million statistics with South Dakota State. But when you just use the eye test with the bunnies, it seems like they're bigger, stronger, more physical, and are playing better ball. But
can I add this though? Because actually at the game, Montana State was so much bigger than Sam Houston State.
Yep.
Like you might not have been able to see it on TV, but we were on the first level of the game. Montana State across the board, way bigger than Sam Houston State. They looked bigger, they looked faster, they looked more physical. Sam Houston State had, I think, a little bit more athletic abilities, but in terms of size, South Dakota State is not going to overpower size. I think even like Montana's O-line, they were the largest in the, I think, NCAA or at least FCS. I think their average guy, they said, was 325 pounds. Montana State's O-line is not that much difference, at least in terms of when you see them live. This is a big team. So this will be one of those teams where, because South Dakota State did look bigger than Villanova. They did look like they were a more powerful team. I think size-wise, this is going to be a pretty equal team. They're both really big farm boy teams.
And that's, I was interested on your take with that because, Kylor, while I've been kind of like this is where South Dakota State loses because they're traveling and this team's good because of this stat. You've just been like, yeah, no, South Dakota State's just going to overpower them. So to hear you kind of curve to the other side, maybe not completely like you're going to pick Montana State, but for you to even give justification to the other side is pretty telling here.
They were big live on that first level of the field. That was a big looking team. I don't know what the stats show because I didn't look it up, but just seeing them match up against Sam Houston State, it looked like NDSU versus ETSU in terms of a size difference.
Very, very interesting.
So let me just throw a couple things in real quick. I mean, so just to, give a little credit to Eastern there. The last time the number 1 seed went down before the semis was 2010, App State to Villanova. But there was no 8 seed. They went ahead and lost to Eastern the next week. So on their way to the title. And I think that game sold out in hours. that atmosphere is going to be nuts. And, fans make a difference sometimes. And not a lot of places.
That was the Fargo hope there, Kylor. Sometimes. Not on Friday, just on Saturday.
Selling out at Villanova is big difference between selling out at Montana State.
Oh, for sure. I just had to give you crap.
Yeah. But I mean, just this team hasn't hosted a semifinal game since 1984. So none of those players and neither one of y'all were born time when that happened. And they're ready. They want to see their team win. So that atmosphere is just going to be hopping. It's going to be hopping in the Dome because to try to be the team that sends James Madison to the Sun Belt without a title. But that home field advantage in Bozeman is going to be massive. And tangibles are all that it takes. We'll see.
Yeah, that one's going to be a lot of fun. And Jamie, I guess I would ask you, you were very confident this entire year that Sam Houston was, not going to be you had such a strong confidence that I think in the beginning you believed James Madison and NDSU would be the teams at the end. Now you could say you're not going to be wrong in your prediction. It's just the different Dakota, right? Could be JMU, South Dakota State. So just a little bit of a tweak there. But the question here that is currently showing is from Nate Kotrachi. I apologize, Nate. I'm butchering your last name. That's the best I'm going to be able to attempt it there. But he wants to know, do the Bobcats have the defensive strength to carry them to Frisco? And he says, how about them Bobcats? LOL. So based off what you were watching on that Sam Houston dismantling, is this the defensive team that's finally going to slow down Pierre Strong, Isaiah Davis, a good passing game, a massive offensive line? Do the Rabbits finally get bounced out by this Bobcat defense?
Well, I'll tell you what I think at the end, but do they have the defensive strength? Absolutely. Did you see how fast off the line that team was? They were in that backfield all day. And that's a great offensive line at Sam Houston. They are a very balanced, strong offense, similar to what you see. Now, they don't have quite the horses at running back, and that takes nothing away from Noah Smith and takes nothing away from Rowan Jefferson, but they're not Pierre Strong and Isaiah Davis. Now, Pierre Strong, I believe, got nicked. So his status is up in the air.
I think was he concussion protocol? I thought he would be back.
I'm
based
not
off
sure. Okay,
protocol.
well, we'll have to see. But that defensive line was excellent. And then you have one of the finalists for the Buck Buchanan Award, Troy Anderson, who is a Swiss Army knife. Yeah, they have the defensive strength that can carry that Frisco. Will they? We'll see. It's one hell of a matchup.
Yeah, that's one of the matchups I'm really excited to see. Troy Anderson, arguably one of the most talented football players we've seen all decade, just because of his versatility. I mean, is he the only guy who's ever been on the watch list for the Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, and Buck Buchanan? That does not happen, right? That does not happen.
No.
So if in terms of just what this football player can do, he can do everything. And it's going to be real fun to see that matchup. Linebacking core, which is elite, versus that running back core from South Dakota State. Yeah, that's a matchup to see, especially because we're going to see an amazing senior go home that night on one of those ends. Which one's going to actually go home? Which one's going to advance? Amazing players. It'll be a fun matchup to see. So I'm glad you kind of brought up Troy Anderson's name because that will be a fun one.
That would be very cool. One outlier here before we get to our final question within this matchup for the Big Seven. Okay, here you go. This is trippy. South Dakota State plays in the Missouri Valley. Jamie, I just need a one-word answer. Missouri Valley, do they pass? Do they run? Would you say?
He's on mute, so they stink.
Are you talking about the Valley as a whole?
The Valley as a whole is a concept. Do they pass or do they run?
They run.
They run. South Dakota State's passing defense total is 86 in the country for passing yards allowed.
Yep.
Kylor, for the Big Sky, do they pass or do they run in terms of the overall generic who they are?
None now. There's a few passing teams, but most of it's a running conference now.
Is it really? Okay, then
it's not the same Big Sky as before. It is a defense-heavy running option with a few passing teams left.
Okay, well then my point's going to fall on deaf ears, but I'm still going to say it's important. Montana State passing yards allowed is 12th. So if they are able to match on the lines, and they're able to take Oladuku out, in terms of not being able to be an efficient passer, and they can really kind of focus in. And on the opposite side of the house, South Dakota State is going to let Tommy touchdowns throw the ball pretty efficiently at home in a comfortable position. Maybe that could be a pretty big factor. So
I don't think you're wrong in the passing defense aspect, though, because a couple facts will match the statistics. They have played Eric Schmidt. He turned the ball over 3 times. They were everywhere. He had played Eric Berrier, held him to his lowest yards since probably 2 years ago. Like, their passing defense is elite, and that is probably the reason why they're number 12 in the nation. But they only played a couple passing teams: Portland State, Eastern Washington, and now Sam Houston State. So,
and if you guys, Brett Vegan is the coordinator there who played against South Dakota State a lot. Is a coordinator for North. He's the head coach there. He was a coordinator with NDSU. They're operating a lot like North Dakota State has in the past. If you are a Jackrabbit fan right now going, what the heck, man? Talk about us. You need to subscribe to the FCS Fans Nation YouTube network, and you need to listen to the Jackrabbit Illustrated podcast. I'm sure you already listened to it, but our boys in the Jackrabbit Illustrated podcast, the A team, the B team, those guys put on really good quality content, and it's available on YouTube here. So make sure you click the subscribe button. And of course, we're going to talk about Jackrabbits. One last little segment here. Dustin Perman asked, how much does Pierre Strong getting hurt affect the Rabbits on Saturday? My understanding was that it was concussion protocol and he is likely to be back. And now let's just play hypothetically that I'm wrong there and that he's actually out. Kylor, do you think that that's a big ding for the Rabbits with Isaiah Davis still at the helm?
it's still it's a big ding to lose a guy like Pierre Strong, because right now they have a 2-headed monster. And actually, Davis has probably been the better running back the second half of the season. Now, I know there was already injuries and stuff that kind of made that happen, but Isaiah Davis is a hell of a running back. Most teams would love to have one of them. The great thing for South Dakota State is they have 2 of them. But when you're playing a rushing team like Montana State, like Jamie said, they're fast, they're physical, they get through the line real quick. Being able to rotate those running backs as frequently as you can with Pierre Strong and Isaiah Davis definitely helps when it goes into that 3rd, 4th quarter. Because what we saw was there were second half adjustments with Sacramento State. They were able to shut down the running game. It's really nice to have 2 elite running backs no matter what. But I mean, it probably doesn't hurt South Dakota State as much as like if another team had a Pierre Strong Jr. and they lost him, because they would be down all their running backs. At least South Dakota State still has an elite running game without him, but it definitely hurts when you're this far in the season, semifinals against a really elite defense, probably in snow. You're going to want every single running back you have, especially the ones who are, getting nominated for running back of the year and offensive player of the year. It's definitely not an easy thing to lose at the very end of the season.
No, that's not fun at all. And this game hopefully won't start stupid narratives like the spring season affected a lot, because obviously 3 of the 4 semifinalists all played in the spring season, advanced far, and they've all done really well. But I will say it will be a little bit interesting to see if maybe Montana State has a slight fresh leg edge, because they didn't play in the spring. They got a bye week. They got a home game. They did 1 road game, and now they're back home. So I wonder if all of that together, not the spring season, but all of it together, culminates in just that Montana State looking as fast and fresh as they did down there in Sam Houston. But the South Dakota State showing no sign of wear and tear at this point.
So the one thing I did want to add to that is Pierre Strong is amazing. But to me, if you're only going to have one of those, I'd rather be Davis. And that's not a knock on Pierre Strong. These are 2 of probably top 5 running backs in the FCS. But if you think about it, look at the games that the Jackrabbits lost this year. Davis did not play in one of those 3 games. He wasn't there. So, hey, he's fresh.
That's true. It's a really good point. If you have to have the main guy.
Yeah, and I don't want to I'm taking nothing away from Strong. They're way better off with him and Davis. But if you have to have only one this week, it's Davis. He's more, to me, the workhorse that can just pound it between the tackles. And he's got tons of speed. But Pierre Strong is that, like Troy Anderson, that Swiss Army knife on offense that can throw the ball, catch the ball, run the ball. So they both have tons of talent. But if I only have one, and they're probably in the better position at this point.
Yeah, so it's definitely going to come down to line play, definitely going to come down to coaching, and who can get some semblance of an efficient passing game. Now, these are good passing offenses. If Tommy Touchdown continues to play the way he does, people question his stats against UT Martin. Montana State fans will tell you that was a crap weather game. It was not set up for passing. It probably wasn't even part of their game plan. But that's going to be interesting to see if the young Phenon will keep killing it. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But before we get into more quick hit questions about this, guys, yes, this is question 8 because of our charity event going on. Jamie, going to toss this one to you, man, from Mr. Tim Rask. Your opinion on this matters a lot. Who are you all predicting to win the big awards from the 3 finalists for each of the big ones, the Walter Payton and our other awards coming up? Jamie, you are a stats voter. You vote for these things. What are your kind of predictions, your overall thoughts of the Buck Buchanan and the Walter Payton?
For Payton, our finalists are Eric Berrier, amazing quarterback out of Eastern Washington, Quay Holmes, a running back from East Tennessee State, and Cole Kelly from Southeastern Louisiana. My guess is Holmes is third, and it's between the 2 quarterbacks. I personally voted Eric Berrier number 1 and Cole Kelly number 4, but these 3 players have 45 of the 50 first place votes. I have a feeling that Eric's going to win the award. I hope he does. We'll see. Buck Buchanan finalists are Patrick O'Connell, Troy Anderson, and
Florida A&M.
Isaiah Land from Florida A&M.
If you're not watching on YouTube, Jamie just did this off the top of his head, so don't be hating on him as a stats voter. He didn't have no computer in front of him, so this guy's a machine. Here.
I voted Isaiah Land number 1. I didn't have either of those 2 linebackers, O'Connell or Anderson, on my top 5. You can decide if that was a mistake. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I think one of those 2 guys wins it. My guess is Anderson wins by a slim margin over O'Connell. Jerry Rice Award was just announced earlier today. Quarterback Shadir Sanders, Deion's son, and I hope I was close on his first name. Jackson State quarterback, had an amazing season, won the award. I had voted him 3rd. Darius Hale of Central Arkansas was 2nd. That is who I voted first. They haven't announced finalist for Eddie Robinson. I would guess that the finalists are going to be Randy Sanders of ETSU, probably Deion, and Jason Simpson of UT Martin would be my guess. Any of those could win it, and it could be somebody else. Parenthetically, Randy Sanders actually retired today, so there's an open at East Tennessee State. That's a good coaching opening there in the Southern Conference. So those would be the 3 that I would handicap for that award, but I don't know when the finals will come up for that. But if you look at some of the freshmen of the Jerry Rice, the FCS is in good hands despite what schools are leaving. So looking forward to seeing who wins those other major awards.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. And one final shout out as we exit our Big 7 here, guys. Everybody loves the playoffs and playing the playoffs. Celebration Bowl, sell out, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Holy moly, that is huge. So congratulations to the HBCU schools and that bowl game. I mean, talk about exposure and money and pride. It's so cool. So kudos to the Celebration Bowl. If you're going to that game, make sure you post videos and photos and everything onto our fan page, because we love to learn about it, learn about the history, learn about the present, and just to support it as much as possible. So kudos to the HBCUs. It'd be fun to see who comes out and wins that trophy on December 18th. So should be cool. All right, gentlemen, those were our Big 7. Good questions. We appreciate those from our fans on our FCS Fans Nation page. And now it's time to get to, I don't even need to always say it, but it's definitely my favorite segment. Let's get to the quick hit questions.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
Oh, FCS Fans Nation, we would always care about your questions and comments. So much love throughout the season. All right, guys, let's get right into these. I'm going to take Mr. Brandon Anderson's right off the bat. He says, any ideas on how to convince my supervisor to let me take a half day to make it up to go to the Fargo Dome? Brandon, it's very easy. You found my GoFundMe to help people out. You donated to it. And now you need to go to the charity event where I reveal the big check to give to underprivileged individuals and help out a community. So there you go. You're going to a charity event, and that looks good for any company. So, I mean, I think that works, right, boys?
Hey, Brandon, it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, too.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
I just like how political. Matt Frazee knows how to play the game. That was impressive. lying, but also not lying. He's talking about the truth.
Yeah.
But if you don't raise the $500, well, then you can still go and say, I was trying to, go to Fargo and raise those last few dollars myself.
100%.
So yeah, I like Matt's political game there.
Just tiptoe the line a little bit, right? Not too bad. We'll see how the rest of these answers go if we can keep tiptoeing. And we'll talk about this one. Kylor, I'll toss it right to you, man. Which two teams meeting in Frisco would be the juiciest headline? Since you're the outsider looking in at this point, Cody Werlinger wants to know, what's the best headline for a matchup in the finale?
I mean, it is what it is. The page is going to be unbearable. Everything's going to suck. Life will be horrible. But the Dakota marker for the matchups that are there right now, that's a big headline. Always a rivalry game. And if you can do that in Frisco, because most people all decade have said, NDSU is the only thing stopping SDSU from being the second best team of the decade, right?
Right.
Most people say the second best team from the Valley would be any other team. Well, they would have their wish if that game happens. The media would love it. Sam Herder would love it. He's a secret closeted Missouri Valley fan, no matter what he says. That's the great headline. But man, MSU JMU, how cool would that headline be? It's like passing of the torch. Good luck to the Sun Belt, and then JMU is maybe passing the torch to the next up and coming program. 2 semifinals in a row. Brand new coach under Vegan. I mean, Montana State's been building this thing for a while, and they may be the next best team that happens after a few teams leave. Like, it seems like they're on that trajectory, but I don't know. There's something about a rivalry game, man. There's something about a rivalry game.
That would be a lot of fun for sure. Jamie, this is an essential question from Mr. Joshua Hoffman, an awesome South Dakota State fan on our page. He wants to know, would you rather fight 100 Duke dog-sized Kylor Neals or one Kylor Neal-sized Duke dog? Now, I have to caveat this. Lawrence bought me the book for my children, Hello Duke Dog, which is about your guys' mascot going to the game. It's an awesome read. I read it to my kids all the time. They ask for Duke Dog. But we have to do this as Old English Bulldogs, right? Because Duke Dog is huge. So if you did 100 Duke Dog size Kylor Neals, that's a normal human being, right? That's a normal sized guy. That's not fair. So it's got to be Old English Bulldogs. So would you rather fight 100 Old English Duke Dog Bulldogs or one giant one as big as Kylor Neal?
Yeah, that was good. You kind of took my answer away because I was going to say, have you seen how big Duke Dog is? I would want one Kylor-sized Duke Dog, but if it's just little bulldogs, 100 little of those that look like Kylor, I mean, as ugly as that would be, good Lord, dude, that'd be the easy eventually.
You watch your mouth. Watch that mouth.
So good.
Here, let me talk about this since it is me. Because Joe Rogan always talks about this on his podcast, right?
So good.
What would you rather face, a 100-pound rat or 10 little Joe Rogans that they're rat size? You know how much strength an animal has? Yeah, one big dog, that's the size of a gray wolf or even bigger. They're beating those little things. They'll just be like miles to them. But yeah, Jamie, all I know is you better watch your mouth.
Oh, that's so good.
You go to the Sun Belt. You pack your bags. Get off this page.
You get off my pod. Jamie, I may have stolen your line because I had the book research, but I could not have stolen that one. That was too good. Boy, that was gut laughing there. That's fun. I can't wait to have beers with you guys in Frisco. All right, guys. Did the committee get it right? And if you reseeded the final 4 teams, what would it look like? Keel Wilson and Ryan Season have roughly the same question here. Keo did say this is the first time since 2010 in which the number 1 seed was knocked out in the quarterfinals. While seeds do not necessarily predict the outcome of a game, do you still believe the committee got it right based off recent events? And Ryan wants us to include all the 8 seeds. Where would you put those guys 1 to 4 now? It's easy to say 1 to 4, right? Is it that simple? Let's just do it that way. Jamie, these teams, seed them 1 through 4 based off of right now. How would you seed them?
Based off of how they've played so far, NDSU, JMU, Montana State, South Dakota State, maybe. I don't think you can go wrong. I feel even horrible saying South Dakota State at 4.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm actually a little opposite on you. I think I'd put South Dakota State at least in the top 2. I think I'd put James Madison up there as well. I think I'd put NDSU at the 3 because ETSU, maybe they could have been a little more impressive there. You could flip flop NDSU and Montana State at 3 and 4 though, because Montana State looks dang good. I don't know, Kylor. What do you think?
I mean, all of these teams you can put 1 through 4. I don't care what anyone says. South Dakota State had to go on the road multiple times. They're winning now. Yes, they were favored in the matchups, so maybe they weren't the underdog. Montana State's actually murdered everyone they played. Nothing's been close, and they just beat the number 1 team. So I mean, they have an argument where you can say, hey, maybe they should have been 1. I mean, they only lost 1 FCS game all year, and they beat their. I mean, it was against their rivals, and they beat everyone else. But then James Madison and NDSU all look dominant as well. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think I would leave it exactly how it is. It's seeded. Let's just go by order. NDSU, JMU, Montana State, South Dakota State, because all of them are playing exceptionally well right now.
Cool. I like it. You guys aren't allowed to answer this because we have a limit on the show time. So I'm going to take it from you. Like in 2016 is the NDSU JMU semifinal essentially the title game, says Peter Mooney and Brad Jans. Okay, just have to say this. In 2016, remember, just because Youngstown upset Eastern on like the most crazy play, Eastern Washington was one of the best teams they've ever had. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Kylor, your 3rd string wide receiver that year is still in the NFL now. That was Cooper Kupp. That team went to the Fargo Dome and lost in an overtime game in the out-of-conference season. That 2016 Eastern Washington team was freakish. And I know how good JMU was, but JMU Eastern Washington in 2016 would have been a phenomenal matchup in comparison to what we saw with Youngstown. And I will add this on top. It is very disrespectful, in my opinion. In Youngstown, you could disrespect them. But I don't think you can disrespect Montana State or South Dakota State. If you're a Dukes fan and you think like just because you got through the dome, you're going to go beat them, that's not accurate because NDSU might not be better than those 2 teams. Those 2 teams might be better than North Dakota State. So I think this is far from the championship. Kylor, I know you just got to say something. I can tell it's on the tip of your tongue. Go ahead, man.
Did you just say Cooper Kupp was our 3rd string wide receiver?
No,
is that what I heard?
No, your 3rd string wide receivers was in the NFL, right? Right.
Our 1st, our 2nd, and then our third string Simba Webster. Yeah, he's still in the NFL.
Yeah, he was insane.
All right. I thought you were mentioning Cooper Kupp was the 3rd string. I'm like, this guy should not be on an FCS podcast.
You can't be 3rd string when you're the number 1 receiver statistically and everything in the NFL. So.
All right, you redeemed yourself.
Yes. I plan to make this thing a segment next year, so make sure you guys subscribe to this podcast on all platforms around taco bets. But what is the appropriate amount of tacos for a taco bet, says Peter Hagan, an awesome South Dakota State fan. What do you think, Jamie? What's the appropriate amount for two guys or 2 gals to vote on tacos?
It's a mathematical formula. So it's your weight minus your age divided by 15. And that's how many tacos you should bet. Because, I'm a little bit heavier than y'all, but I'm also a little bit older, so take off a couple more tacos divided by 15. I think that's appropriate math problem. I would love to hear Brian Thompson's comment on this because he is the taco king.
He is the taco king. Brian Thompson, I may or may not be naming that segment after you next season, so make sure you subscribe. Jamie, I'm going right back to you because you begged me to answer. You wanted this question, and begging's a bad word because you did your research here and you got a good answer. Dion Blumerader and Dustin Perman basically had the same question. They want to know what is targeting because targeting calls have been so bad, so off. Some are good, some are bad. What's actually being called doesn't seem to be consistent. So, Jamie, what is it? What is targeting at this point?
So, targeting, in essence, is leading with the crown on a helmet and using that for the hit. And we'll use the 2 calls that were reviewed in the JMU Montana game. And I know I'm going to sound like a homer. So I understand that. And Montana fans are not going to agree with me. However, the one that was not called on Sam Kidd that we all thought was targeting, including myself sitting in the stands, if you watch that replay like I did a bunch today, the quarterback is tackled by Azanama. Kidd reads that as he's coming in to make the tackle. If they're both going down, but if you watch what Kidd does, he's turning to his left to try to avoid. He hits him with this part of the helmet into the head. So the 15-yard penalty for roughness and head contact, valid. That's not targeting. Now, if you look at the punt return that Sroba did, he was already down and 88 came flying in. And I know he was trying to then make a stop, but already down, he dove head first, crown of the helmet into the head. That's targeting. And do they always get it right? Absolutely not. But those two calls were right. And it's possible to tackle without targeting. Watch Patrick O'Connell tackle. He will never, ever get called a targeting, ever. He comes in hard. His head is always up, leading with the shoulder. Patrick O'Connell, watch that guy tackle, because I picked a Montana guy on purpose because I know I just sounded like a homer. But if you watch those two replays, you'll see exactly what is targeting and what isn't.
Good breakdown. So go to the film, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the rule book. That might help you out. But we will agree with you guys in terms of it has been viciously
Very
inconsistent. They have missed so many calls in our opinions. They have not done well. So maybe Jamie did have a good example there, but if you guys are upset about this, there are a lot of examples where the FCS and college football, they got to figure it out. So here we go, guys. Can they just boot all the remaining FBS schools out of the FCS, meaning the Dukes with the Sun Belt? And can the cover page be purple if James Madison is an FBS school? Okay, so of course, Dustin, we'd love to end the reign of the current about to be FBS schools with James Madison. But what Dustin's referring to with the color page is our page on Facebook, which you should go join, is the FCS Fans Nation Facebook page. Our cover photo is based on our cover color. It's the color of the page. Makes it look all pretty. It's based off the current number one team in the stats poll or the highest remaining seed remaining in the playoffs, and it will be the champion in all the offseason. But yes, if the Dukes win the championship, even though they will be FBS transitional next year, they will be that until the preseason poll. So that's kind of how it's going to work. So there we go.
Salty Rev is really annoying, damn it.
Salty Rev, not as good as Cardboard Rev. Oops, I put these out of order, so I guess I got to go back to back. Richard Dean, does Matt have faith the Bison fans will show up Friday night? Richard, right now you have about 20 sideline seats remaining. You've got about 600 plus end zone top seats remaining, but that's still going to be over 17,000. We'll see what happens with season ticket holders who can return their tickets on Wednesday, but I think you're going to be over 17K, a little over 18,000. I'm not sure when the official number is considered a sellout. So you'll be probably down 1,000, but 17K is a rocking environment, especially with faithful people who know the history right now with the Dukes and the Bison. So, and Kylor, I'm going to give you the final quick hit question here, my man. This is great for Mr. Steve Anderson because I know you're going to have a great answer. What's a better measure of a team since these nationally ranked offenses and defenses keep losing? So teams with a power offense or a power defense, they keep dropping. What is the better measure of a team, my man?
I don't know how many times I have to say these words every single podcast. Balance, right? Defense does not win championships. Offense does not win championships. You need one elite section, one good section of each. So just because you have a powerful offense doesn't mean you're automatically a shoo-in if your defense isn't backing up. Just because you have an elite defense, if you can't throw the ball, if you can't run the ball and score points, you're not going to win. I don't care how elite your defense is. You need a very balanced team. And guess what? Out of the teams left, they're all pretty balanced, right? You can read it on the stats page. You can read it on the statistics. Montana State's probably the least balanced of them. And what are they? Still a top? I don't know what their offense is. I haven't looked, but they're still up there. They had some good runs. So yeah, you need an elite defense and a good offense, or an elite offense and a good defense, or else nothing's gonna happen. So yeah, we didn't learn anything. We just learned the teams that are left are super extremely balanced, and they're all really good. They're big. They're all physical. They're fast. And they're balanced. They can play defense. They can play special teams. They can play offense.
It is going to be a ton of fun to see these four really great teams. And people go, Montana State, they're kind of that fringe like of the three that I would trust. Just remember, besides a rivalry game loss, which also North Dakota State had to South Dakota State, to the Grizz, a rivalry intense game, you all had Montana State way up there as one of the top teams. So they had that FBS loss to Wyoming barely, but this is a good team, guys. All right, those quick hit questions, that wraps them up, gents, as we are going to move into only 2 games to predict. We're almost at the end. It makes me sad.
These predictions because we're smart, because we're dumb, or because we're biased? It may be a combination of all three. Welcome to the playoff prediction segment.
All righty, gents. Let's kick it right here with our Friday night game, 8:15 Central kickoff, 9:15 Eastern. Kicking off on ESPN2, number 3 seeded James Madison will visit number 2 North Dakota State in Fargo. These two teams meeting in 2016, 2017, 2019, twice in Frisco. That 2016 obviously being down there in Fargo. 2011 as well, they met in Fargo too, but that was kind of a different era. So it is time to predict some games. I guess, Kylor, we're going to save you for the end just because you're the third party, and then I'll go first here. I predicted James Madison to beat NDSU in 2017. I was wrong, but I do still think that game was an upset. I thought the NFL talent and some of the other factors in 2019 of the two teams, I thought NDSU had a slight edge, so I felt good on that pick as well. I think this is an extremely good matchup. I think it's going to be less than a 10-point win either way. History shows us that. Everything shows us. I'm just going to predict it off the things Bison fans have more faith in, and I'm sure Jamie will probably go the opposite route. And Bison fans are just thinking we are going to be able to swarm an offensive line that's young with a quarterback that's not as dual threat. So we won't have to worry about the rushing game as much because we know how elite our defense is. We know how good our veteran secondary is. And we will be able to wear down and use the play action pass effectively enough to win the game. Both teams have great kickers. Both teams have great defense. The home field advantage, NDSU feels like they've got it. So I will take the Bison in a classic. I'll take them in a close one. Give me NDSU something with field goals involved. So like 23-17, epic, classic. Bison moving on to Frisco. So Mr. Williams, on to you. And then Kylor, we'll get you at the end.
Well, I just don't think this is going to be anything but a slugfest. I mean, just excellent teams going at it one last time in the FCS, and I'm looking forward to it. The injury bug for NDSU was a big factor. The fact that our offense has really gelled and has come to life probably since the William & Mary game ended. They're getting in the end zone, and I mean, this is obviously the best team we faced all year. We can say that every week for everybody. I'm going to trust Cole Johnson. I'm going to trust Antoine Wells. I'm going to trust our front seven. We rotate in 2 lines worth of players, so they're not going to get tired. The funny thing is, you said they can score 23-17, Dukes.
I like that. Just right. I mean, they're built like each other, right? So why not just have a prediction on the other side? All right, Kylor, split the hairs, if you will. What do you got for a prediction, my man?
Can I just say this is such a boring game? There's like no one cares about North Dakota State JMU playing in a game together. It's not like that's been a big game in the FCS the last 5 years. What a great way to end one of these teams' legacies. Either JMU is going to go home to the Sun Belt not being an FCS champion, which means they weren't good enough to compete for the FCS title, or NDSU, the dynasty's over. They can't win 2 in a row. What a bum program. This is such a horrible game, horrible matchup, horrible teams. No one pay attention to this game. Man, this is real hard. I still don't know who I'm going to choose. So we're just going to – I mean, I think it's going to be a good game right now. Man, I think I'm going to lean towards NDSU, though. I think it's going to be a 24-21 game. I think it is going to be a field goal. Yeah, I think Johnson's going to make a rare mistake that he does not typically make towards kind of the fourth quarter to really seal the deal. So, yeah, give me NDSU, unfortunately, even though I'd rather root for a Sun Belt team over this pile of crap. But yeah, NDSU, I think they're going to win by 3 in a slugfest. But this is anyone's game. This is a pick 'em. I'm not betting.
You did that because of my Bulldog comment, didn't you?
Shut your dirty mouth. I said I'm coming for you.
Getting that revenge. Should be fun. Who knows how it's going to be. The environment's going to be great. So win, lose, or there are no draws. It's going to be great. So I just hope good health and good luck to your squad, Jamie. It'll be great. Moving on, let's get South Dakota State at number 8 Montana State. That is going to be on Saturday. It should be a fun matchup to watch. Kylor, you can start with this one, my man, since we had you go last.
But I would like to hear more about the travel. Will you take this one first?
Oh, I would love to take this one first. So the travel is all that has mattered, as now South Dakota State has traveled over 3,600 miles.
That's big sky.
Trek their way up to Bozeman. No, I will go first. This is not. It's not even remotely logical anymore. I'm going to eat so much crow if South Dakota State makes it there. I have just hammered that them, and nobody else could ever survive this sort of road slate. But if you wanted me to go logical, I think this is a much worse matchup for South Dakota State than what Sam Houston would have been. Revenge factor gone. Vegan, who coached against Stig and South Dakota State's crew, knows them better than what most coaches will know, and he always had a lot of success. Different era, but he does know them. Going to Bozeman, like Jamie said, since 1984, rowdy crowd, absolute chaos. It's going to be a tough environment. Pierre Strong, hopefully he's 100%, but we will see. I'm going to trust Montana State's, yes, healthy, fresh legs. They're big lines that you've promoted, Kylor, at home in an environment. This is finally the team that stops the Jackrabbits run. And if the Rabbits make it, let it be heard right here so I can screen record this for Twitter. Kudos to you guys, because wow, if you make it through that whole road slate, 3 different seeds all the way to Frisco, absolutely 100% well done. I'll take Montana State. I'll take them in actually more of a high scoring game. I'll take them like 31 to 20, 31 to 21. Should be fun. Jamie, what do you got, my man?
Just out on the last one, man. This one is super tough to predict. I mean, both teams deserve to be here. Both teams could win. I can make a case for both teams. Goodness, I mean, Young State from the Valley running off 4 road games and beat a Big Sky team in the semis. So why couldn't South Dakota State? I'll tell you why. Montana State's a lot better right now. They're just football. 4,700-foot elevation, I think, actually might be a little bit of a factor. Gosh, it's going to be so close. I guess I'm going to take Montana State 31-30. So, when I'm picking it as a one-score game, I'm 0% confident in my I just feel like Montana State just has the momentum rolling all of a sudden in the playoffs, and that place is going to be rocking. I've got to go with that, just that intangible.
And no, ladies and gentlemen, we aren't having random breakups in technology here. This is the feeling of all FCS fans across everywhere. Nobody really knows who to pick because this is just going to be so dang close. You can tell on social media. Nobody's even talking trash. I don't see it between Dukes fans, Bison, Cats, Rabbits. Everyone's just quietly like, I think we're going to win. So, Kylor, what do you got, man? Final prediction here.
Is this going to be a clean sweep?
Oh.
Is it Matthew Frazee picked MSU? Jamie Williams picks MSU. Kylor just went to an MSU game, and he saw how big they are. But it's not going to be a clean sweep. I'm going to pick against the Bobcats, and I'm going to go with the little, Jackrabbits here. The main reason is Montana State, if you actually watch the game, I mean, it seemed like they dominated Sam Houston State, but that was because of 3 turnovers. 3 really rare turnovers for Sam Houston State. And Sam Houston State's pass defense is just not good. But still, when you look at the stats board, Montana's State's biggest weapon, Afonso, he struggled. Now, yes, he had 100 yards. That was one play at the very end of the game where he had 40-something yards, right? He was only rushing 2 yards a carry or 1 yards per carry, it seemed like. Sam Houston State was actually able to move the ball. I think South Dakota State's going to be able to move the ball a little bit as well. It's still really good elite defenses playing the elite defenses. I just trust right now the balance of South Dakota State slightly more than the balance of Montana State in the offensive scheme. But, man, if it was at South Dakota State, give me the Jackrabbits by 10. At Montana State, really close 3-point game. I'm not betting on this. Jackrabbits win 21-17.
Ooh, gonna be a lot of fun. Close either way. I would say the odds of blowouts in either of these, absolutely 0. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your questions, your listening. Guys, we have reached over 2,000 listens, views, hits, YouTube clicks, whatever you want to call it. We've never even come close to this. But over the last probably about month since the playoff selection show, we're over 2,000 across the platforms. Thank you so much to your guys' support. We really appreciate this. We don't do this for advertising or money or nothing. We just do it because Jamie, Kylor, and I and the admins, we like to talk football. And we love that we're going through your guys' radios on your phones and that you can enjoy a nice little platform of some casuals talking about it. So thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe to us on, Apple, Google, shameless plug. Really hit that YouTube subscription because that's really helping us out a lot in terms of getting us out there for more content. So thank you so much to everybody for the support. Final plug again, look for the GoFundMe, pop your money in there, support people who need help this holiday season and throughout the rest of the school year, and make me wear that Dukes jersey. Make my friends be so pissed at me at the tailgate. So Jamie, I wish your crew and I wish your team and the Dukes health and a good game. Kylor, I hope you enjoy everything from where you're watching. Jamie, any final thoughts before our Dukes and your Dukes and your Dukes? See, I'm already about to wear the jersey. Your Dukes, my Bison, face off.
Our Dukes.
Again, I like you said, I want a clean game there, clean game in Bozeman. May the best two teams wind up in Frisco in front of us. Any of these 4 teams can win the championship. Any of these 4 could be standing. Only one will. Only 2 will be there. But these might be the 4 best teams right now.
It's a semifinal matchup we maybe haven't seen in a long time. 2 sides, undecided, coin flips. All right, FCS
sucks.
Oh my goodness. All right, FCS Fans Nation, we are rolling out. Enjoy the games this weekend. So we are about to find out, guys, who's going to join the admin team and Heidi on down to Frisco. Enjoy the blue blood battle, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy it, guys. Boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.
He's like, I was scrolling. I was like, I think that's the podcast dude.
Nice.
So let me ask.
That's awesome.